across the continent, as today also marks the Africa Students' Day. And just briefly on Africa Students' Day, also to provide some context as to what exactly this is about and why we are doing what we are doing. The Africa Students' Day came about as a result of the events that happened on June 16, 1976, known quite prominently as the Soweto Youth Uprising. And in June 1976, the students in South Africa, of course, under the apartheid regime, the very oppressive government led by the white minority group in South Africa, embarked on a very peaceful demonstration, all in opposition to some details or issues in respect of the new education bill that had been introduced. That is the Bantu Education Act of 1953. And as a result of that, the Afrikaans language was to be part of English as the compulsory languages in the education setup. Students, obviously, one can understand also because of the composition of that particular nation, took opposition to that, and as part of their own efforts of democratic opposition to this arrangement, the apartheid regime clamped down on them using the brute force of the state, and that led to the massacre of several students and young people in that country. It is therefore very important for all of us to appreciate this and never lose sight of this history and the devastation that brought. Among other things, it sought to really instill some sense of censorship in students. But what we saw there from our comrades and friends in South Africa is something that continues to inspire all of us to also know very well that irrespective of the circumstances, no matter how oppressive things can be, we need to continue to fight, and we are forever indebted to South Africans and the students of South Africa for that. And so before we proceed any further, I would urge and ask of you very respectfully that we observe a minute silence better as a people. So with your indulgence, kindly, a minute's silence to honor those who were killed in such a very gruesome manner. Very well. Thank you all, and very grateful for your patience and, of course, for your support also in this regard. I want to get ahead very quickly and then get some introductory remarks or address from especially the Secretary General of the All Africa Students Union. It is under his leadership that we organize this event, and we're also grateful to him for all that he does for the student movement on the continent. Just briefly also to take you through what will be happening now. We are going to have, as and when it's ready, share with you some solidarity messages from our partners and members, as I mentioned to you earlier. Also, the past struggles of students and victories. That's something that we've been sharing with you over the period. And I'm sure that even after this event, when you visit our social media platforms, you are most likely going to get access to some of these materials as we put them out there. And then also, as you know, when it comes to events of this nature, it's always very important to open it up. So as a part of the ground rules for all of you, you're welcome to share with me your own questions if you have any such for the conversation that we're going to have for the panelists that I'll be introducing also to you. Do well to send your questions or your contributions through the chat platform, and I'll do very well to also read that for you. The Secretary General of the All Africa Students Union is available and is here. We're initially going to share with you some solidarity messages. I am informed by the technical team that that is not immediately ready. It would mean that I would have to put the Secretary General on the spot, but I know him to be a man who is always ever ready to take up challenges. And so we're very happy to have His Excellency, Mr. Peter Kwesi Koji. I'm not so sure if he needs any further introduction, but when it comes to issues of student leadership here in Ghana and on the continent, he's one that we cannot overlook, and his contributions are very, very much appreciated here. And we also know that even now, he transcends the African continent to do a lot more activism and policy work on the education front across the world, works very closely with the Global Student Forum and other compatriots on different continents across the world. So we're very happy, sir, to have you this morning join us. And you have the platform now for the next 10 minutes to deliver a keynote address and to welcome all of us really once again to this event. Thank you very much, sir, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Karim. Let me start by thanking everyone for taking the time to join us this morning. And I do understand that we've been joined vigorously by students from not just across the continent, but globally. Good day, everyone. Today, we celebrate the African Students' Day. And incidentally, also, today marks the International Day of the African Child, which obviously has roots back into the Soweto uprising. I would want to thank the team at ASU that has worked very hard to make sure that we have an opportunity to have a discussion such as the one we're about to have. And again, I'd want to thank the Global Student Forum, particularly the Executive Director, Sebastian, and also to thank the steering committee for the wonderful work that they've been doing thus far. Again, I would want to thank everyone who has made time to join us, particularly the student leaders, not just from Ghana and not just from Africa, but across the world. Thank you very much for making time to join us. At the 6th Congress of the All Africa Students Union that was held in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, in 1982, the union declared 16th June as the African Students' Day. And this was done to show solidarity to our colleagues that were involved in the Soweto uprising on June 16, 1976, and popularly known as the Soweto uprising. On the sad day, like Karim has mentioned, school children on a peaceful protest requesting the apartheid government of South Africa at the time to use the local language as a means of instruction were met with fierce police brutality, where many hundreds were shot and killed. All these happened under the watch of the international community. And so today we mark this day in remembrance of our departed brothers and sisters. Once again, I'm going to humbly ask that we observe 1 minute of silence in remembrance of our colleagues that have departed. May their brave souls continue to rest in perfect peace. The gains that we have made today came about as a result of the blood, sweat, and tears like what happened at the Soweto uprising. And it is something that we should not take for granted. 30 years after the adoption of the African Charter on the right and the welfare of the child, the ILO is predicting that there will be almost 170 million children in child labor. Out of this number, we're looking at a significant 92 million that are from sub-Saharan Africa. Despite the hard work that we continue to do with the 100 million campaign, with the European Students' Union, with UBESU, with Conclave, with CSA across the world, we still find that a significant number of our brothers and sisters are still out of school. And so we're going to use the opportunity today to look at what we have done in the past, what we continue to do, and what, most importantly, what we can do in the future to make sure that the gains that our forebears have made, we don't lose them. So it comes as no surprise that the United Nations has earmarked the 2021 as a relevant year to end child labor, and is one that we've been working variously with our partners to make sure that we're able to hold the gains, such that we're able to improve our odds and make sure that every child has that right to be a child. So today, as we celebrate both the Africa Students' Day and the International Day of the African Child, we will take stock of our past contributions to championing students' rights around the world, would highlight the present work that we've been doing, and then would seek to look into the future with a great deal of optimism. I do hope that we will be able to enjoy the discussions that we've set out today. And once again, I'll take time to thank everyone who has made time out of their busy schedule to join us for today. Please do send us your comments. Please do send us your questions if you have any, and let's make the session highly interactive. And so once again, thank you, the speakers, for making time to join us. And we're more than happy to listen to your various contributions in terms of the work that we're all doing in our various regions to make sure that every child has an opportunity to be free, safe, and educated. And so thank you very much, and please enjoy the discussions this morning. Karim, once again, I think I may come back to you. Thank you very much.
Very well. Thank you very much, sir, for that very brief, but of course, very detailed keynote address. We're grateful for that. And I'm particularly also interested, especially as you talk about the unique and very difficult position of the African child or the African student. And as today also happens to be the International Day of the African Child, I think that it's only appropriate that we are having this conversation as we are doing now. And I can assure you that the conversation and the discussion that we're going to be having would all, we have a panel of very qualified people with great insights from across the continent who are ready to delve into the issues. But I want to move on from here now and get to take some our colleagues who are joining us in this global effort to make sure that the lives, the rights of students and the youth more broadly are helped and are promoted in that regard. And so I'll start now with the Executive Director of the Global Student Forum. That's Mr. Sebastian Berger. He is also joining us to share with us some solidarity messages on a day like this. After that, I'll be coming to Martina Damanin with the European Student Union, and then also Saniva Forgin Hoshka with SAI, also available to share with us. But first,
I think my network
Sebastian,
was
breaking. Very sorry. I think I
yes, very good.
From my end also, I lost you quite briefly. So happy to have you, Sebastian. And,
thank you so much.
You're good to go.
It was not the best timing for my network to fail. Thank you very much for having me, friends and colleagues. It's a pleasure and it's an incredible honor to be addressing you today in the scope of this important conference, highlighting the pivotal role the African students movement has played today and in the past when it comes to upholding and defending fundamental rights and freedoms. Students' associations and organizations aware of their potential to unionize and to mobilize for a just cause are not to be underestimated as a force in society, as many of your national leaders are proving on an everyday basis while being subjected to the repression and oppression of authoritarian governments on the continent. The struggle that you are facing is certainly not an isolated one. All over the world, progressive students are pushing back against the erosion of democracy, the privatization of our education systems, rising tuition fees and horrendous student debts, as well as police violence and the immoral distribution of global wealth, both within our society and when it comes to the division between the North and the South. Today's conclave is celebrating the invaluable contributions and personal sacrifices African student leaders have made over decades to further social justice and societal development. It embraces the true power of the students' movement as an agent of change within Africa and globally. I want to reassure you that with the creation of the Global Student Forum last year, ASU has institutionalized an international partner standing in solidarity, ready to amplify your stories and voices. I also want to seize this opportunity to thank all of you, and specifically Peter, your excellent Secretary General, for the overwhelming support and continuous participation of your representatives and your movements in shaping this growing organization. We will be launching the first edition of the GSF Academy in Leadership and Advocacy in October. It's a one-year educational program that will bring together regional and national student leaders to learn from each other and handpick guest lecturers from all over the globe. And we hope to see many of you joining us for this occasion when the call for application goes out this summer. In parallel, we are working with Harvard University to create the first really holistic analysis of students' impact, the impact of student governments globally, making an unprecedented case for the relevance of student unions worldwide and the relevance for what we are doing, what you are doing as ASU. And we will need you as co-editors, your national representatives, as authors and focus points in the coming year to make this project a reality. A lot of exciting opportunities are coming up in the months ahead, but being mindful of time, I will keep it to this talk for today. I want, on behalf of the Global Student Forum, wish you a wonderful conference, a successful conference, vivid deliberations, and thank you very much for your attention and opportunity to speak here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. Grateful. The challenges with, and again, that's part of the issue, is quite a lot. I've received messages already for that problem about how that also is fueling inequality and exacerbating the already precarious situation that students in that part of the country are in. Here in Ghana, maybe relatively better, but not any better if you compare to the best standards across the world. But we're grateful, Sebastian, for that also. I want to move on now from Sebastian to Martina Darmanin. Martina is with the European Students' Union, and to also get a message from Martina. And then after that, we'll come to Soniva, who is also with SAI. And so Martina, if you can hear me and you are available, you can take the floor now and share with me your message also. I'm not so sure if I'm available here currently. Thank you. But if Soniva is here, maybe we'll just move to Soniva Affolgen Hoshka. Maybe you'd also have to help me if I got your name wrongly. Is Soniva available? Okay, I don't think I don't see Soniva here too. If that's correct. So if Soniva is not here also, I guess we would have to then proceed to our first roundtable discussion as we have planned. There are a couple more that will be coming your way pretty shortly. The first roundtable discussion would be on the topic, the way forward for solidarity. And this is a very interesting bit that I'll be moderating myself. After that, we'll have another conversation happening that will be moderated by the Chief Programs Officer here at the All Africa Students Union, another one, and we'll speak to finding mobilization for action. That's also going to be another very interesting conversation. And the final roundtable discussion that we will have for today would be on the African Student Rights Charter, and that would be also moderated by myself and then our man in charge of students and student rights here at the All Africa Students Union. Mr. Donson will be also helping us to deal with that. But I'm informed that Martina is back on now. And so if Martina can hear me, maybe we'll get to her. But I think that we lost Martina once again. If she, Martina's here, great.
Yes.
Great. Happy to have you, Martina. And we're grateful that you joined us. You have the platform now to share with us your message.
Thank you so much, Abdul. I'm so grateful to be here and to be able to address some of Africa's most prominent student leaders. So thank you for this opportunity to join you in commemorating African Students' Day, and in doing so to show tribute and, of course, our highest respect towards the many students who have paid the highest price in standing not only for their own freedom and fundamental rights, but in doing so, ours too. For us at the European Students' Union, it has been an incredibly empowering experience to enhance our cooperation with the All African Students' Union, and especially towards the Global Student Forum. Getting to know the people and the teams behind our regional, our national, and our local students' movements is a very important element in this cooperation. And so I really hope that the future presents itself with more opportunities to bring ESU's constituency and ASU's constituency closer together. When I think of what is the purpose of student representation, to me, it's not only about how we at ESU and ASU enhance our own relevance and our own voice at the decision-making table, but it is also about how we can connect and empower our constituencies together, especially the many students out there who are feeling like they cannot take agency in deciding what they want their future to look like. They feel like hopeless in the face of so many social inequalities just further growing. So the feeling of being hopeless is not a narrative that we want students to conform to. Students, the narrative that we want to reach is that students can and should influence all levels of decision making, be it from the institutional to the local, national, regional, and global levels. This is our message. And in doing so, we cannot forget that students reflect a very large proportion in our society, and not only that, but also in our educational communities. We are one of the largest stakeholders that are being impacted by the decisions governing our societies and our institutions. So it's therefore that having dedicated and motivated local student leaders and national student leaders and committees are the groundwork of all our efforts on the regional and global levels. In this regard, I hope that we have further growing cooperation with ASU to continue our quality advocacy and lobby work in these difficult times when we are really needing of it most. Because indeed, if we do continue focusing our efforts on uniting and standing together, then we can harness the full potential of the student movement to drive impactful social change and transformation. And the spirit of collaboration and solidarity needs to continue growing, not only between the regional unions umbrellaed under the Global Students Forum, but it must echo towards and from our colleagues on the national and local levels. That is the legacy I think that I think of when I imagine what we want to leave behind to the next generation of students and student representatives, that we did our best to fight against injustice together in order not to let the sacrifices of past generations of student activists be done in vain. So on behalf of the European Students' Union, I want to thank you and your whole organizing team for this opportunity to speak and to wish you a very successful conference. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Martina, for that also. We're grateful that you're also able to join us, and we take inspiration from the solidarity and the common work that we all do. At least one can see that especially in the current climate of division and populism, among many other things, where students, where one finds themselves, it doesn't matter what the race of one is, it is always very important that if we decide to come together, there's a lot that we can do. And it's always very inspiring to have the European Students' Union. You have students from the Asian region, from South America, from North America, all come together and work in such very great fashion there. So thank you once again for that. And just also to briefly touch on something that you mentioned, the fact about why it is important to, aside coming together as student unions, to help with the issues of empowerment. I think that is very, very important, because quite a number of people, young people, especially in Africa today, feel very devastated by the lack of opportunities. And that is also why the work that the All Africa Students Union is doing now with one of our working groups, that is the capacity building working group led by Mr. Bismarck Kuduafo, is very important, because what we do and continue to do is to mentor young people across the continent, provide them with some very useful skills that they can. Of course, our reliance on our governments has been very helpful, and so key elements there. And so grateful once again, Martina, for that very inspiring. Eva is unable to join us. So what we're going to do is to proceed now with our first roundtable discussion. Just to also give some context and background, especially for those who are joining us now. Today marks the maiden edition or event of the Africa Students Conclave, organized by the All Africa Students Union, and of course with support from our partners from across the continent and elsewhere around the world. It's also a day to commemorate the Africa Students Day, and among other things also to recognize the very devastating and atrocious acts that happened against students and young people in South Africa on the 16th of June in 1976, when all students did basically at the time was to fight for their own interests and to make their views known. And the apartheid government or the regime in South Africa clamped down on them, all in a bid to keep them silent forever. But they fought back, but that came with some very devastating consequences. A lot of them lost their lives, and we must never forget what happened in that regard. So we're happy to today hold this event and to continue to immortalize all those who led before us and who today have inspired us to continue to have conversations of this nature. At this point, let me welcome those who are going to help us in this first roundtable discussion. We're joined by Alexandra Seibal. Alexandra is joining us, and Alexandra has been here for a very long time now. Very happy that you join us, Alexandra. Thank you very much. And I see you are very beautifully under a shady tree. Just about a few days ago here in Ghana, we embarked on a nationwide tree planting exercise. All in a bid to also do our things better. And the All Africa Students Union featured prominently in that regard, and Elsa and her team leading on the climate change and the work there, especially at the working group level, helped particularly in that respect. So I'm very happy to see you enjoying some fresh air. You're welcome, Alexandra. Others who are also joining us. Great. Others who are also joining us for this particular discussion would be Amadou Diallo. I see Amadou Diallo is also on. And if you can see you, Amadou, and we'll be very happy to have you around. And we're grateful that you also join us today for this discussion. Angel Mbutia is also the secretary for the gender desk here at the All Africa Students Union, and also in charge of international relations at the All Africa Students Union. Angel is currently in Ghana, and so she is currently at the Secretariat with us here at the All Africa Students Union, but originally from Kenya. Angel, welcome, and thank you for joining us also. Great. I don't know if we have lost Amadou, but I think Amadou is still on, and so Amadou, if you can join us, or perhaps even put on your video so that we have the privilege of also seeing you. You have no idea where we meet one another sometime away from. COVID-19, when we can do things more physically. But as and when Amadou is available to join us, I'm sure he will join the conversation. But grateful to all of you for participating and becoming a part of this. So let's begin on this note. I want to start with you, Alexandra. So quite clearly, student activism more broadly, I mean, we've had our challenges across the world. Today, we're where we are now. We're still faced with so many other challenges. Let's start with some brief remarks on the general topic that we are discussing today. When we talk about the need to move forward as student activists in Africa and across the world, I mean, what's your view really on this subject?
Dear All African Students Union, dear participants of the Conclave, and most importantly, dear friends, I am more than delighted that I was invited today to today's discussion on the perspective on student activism in Africa and the need for global solidarity. As I feel so deeply honored, I thought a lot about what I can say today. And normally I would say, hello, I'm Alex, and today I'm speaking on behalf of ABESO, the Organizing Bureau of European School Student Unions, where I'm a board member. However, this feels a little bit underwhelming, especially today, the 16th of June, where we remember such important events, where we remember incredible losses, where we remember that student activism can change, that the phrase education is the key change maker is just not a phrase, it's a mission. And what gives me a lot to think is that fighting for students' rights, fighting for education and therefore a proper life for everyone is a fight that has cost human lives, but it can save a lot too. So who am I? I'm just a school student activist who worries when thinking about how the world is right now. It's undeniable that we're standing before a lot of global challenges. We see inequalities, extreme gaps of wealth and health that are bigger than ever before. We see the climate crisis that you already mentioned, and just recently the pandemic has shown us how fragile our systems, our education systems are. It is undeniable that those things can only be solved on international level altogether, though it never should be forgotten where the profit is made. It is not a secret that the imperialistic capitalist way of living here in Europe has a huge impact in Europe still. Not only is the continent Europe profiting from other continents' exploitation involving child labor, securing prosperity of Europe, in the same breath, for example, in the country I'm located in, Austria, guns are exported into the whole world. And of course, it's on us to raise awareness on that, on me. However, in my years standing up for students, for human rights, I have experienced that when talking to politicians, to stakeholders, in many cases, I am maybe listened to, but not really heard. And sometimes I don't think we can wait for solutions to come by themselves. I think it's about us, us connecting, us organizing, us building a better world. So I'm saying here today, all of the students of the world unite, because together we're louder, together we're stronger. And we are not only the future, we are the present as well. And I think the first step to that is this inclusive, qualitative education we're all fighting for, right? Because we believe it can make a difference, because we know that not everybody has access to good education, because we know that the problems that are in our world do not stop at the school doors. They're inside of every school as well. However, they can be tackled from inside. Prejudice can be fought, and a critical understanding can be taught. And in many cases, student activism is the drive for change, a change that is desperately needed in a world that has so many construction sites. So maybe it's not a perspective I can give, more a hope that altogether we can make this world a better place, that we don't stay silent when injustice happens, and moreover, that we stand in solidarity, side by side. So thank you very much for the invitation, and more importantly for standing up for student rights, remembering. And on behalf of ABESO, I just want to say thank you, and yeah, we stand in solidarity.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. I'm going to come back to you later on this. We'll have all the way till 12:55, Ghanaian time, to finish this conversation. So we'll have a couple of minutes more to come back, because I've picked quite a number of things that you have talked about, and I'll bring them back to you and get the other panelists to also join us. But let me also inform all of you who are joining that Amadou Diallo is joining us. Amadou Diallo will be communicating to us in French. We have an interpretation button down there. And so when I bring him in, you're able to also get that interpretation from him. Ideally, I would love to speak French, but mon français, my French is not good. So I'm not going to even bother at all. So thank you very much, Alexandra, once again. But let me bring in Angel here. And so Angel, you are Kenyan. You work with the All Africa Students Union, and you live within this particular space and have also some direct relationship experience, understanding of student activism on the continent. What is it like really? And when we say the way forward for student activism in Ghana, what exactly are we looking at?
All right, thank you, Karim. And it's quite important that we continue having such discussions. And it's quite encouraging that the world is now coming, getting the attention of students. That is why we are congregating here to align our thoughts and align our agenda, because as Alex said, that we are stronger together. So I'm quite excited to be part of this movement, to be part of the student movement, to be part of student activism, because if I was a Buddhist and I would imagine of having a second life, I would still choose the same life I'm living today, the same career I am in today. And student activism is not even as old as we might think in Africa, because I think student activism was born when countries in Africa started gaining independence. And the first student activists were those who got exposed to education at a much earlier time, that got exposed to getting to know more about the world and the opportunities that were there. And then going back home, you see that they saw that even their own parents did not have, could not see life as they did, because they didn't have the same experience and the same opportunity to have access to education that time. And so they went ahead and spearhead this kind of movement that we are enjoying today. And I am happy to be eating the fruits of that tree. And when we look at independence that exposed us to education, and right after independence, we would argue that most African countries had more, the foundation on education was built much better. And students across Africa, because when we compare then and now, is that what happened then was that there were few scholars and there were more resources for education. Now what we have today is more championed importance of education, employment and all that. But again, we are still relying on those resources that were put in place in the 1960s. We have really not quite expanded to fit our current population and our current desires. Again, that is now where our job comes in as student activists, because we are trying to activate the world into creating more spaces for young people like ourselves, because we cannot imagine ourselves without an education. No matter what the conversation is about unemployment and trying to synthesize education with unemployment, there's no way we can say that you don't have to go to school just because you won't get employed after you get a degree. And that is the pessimism we are getting from society. Graduates are not getting jobs, which is very sad. But again, that should not stop anyone from wanting or killing their desire of having a good and quality education, because education sharpens you holistically. Socially, you become better. Economically, you become better. And even as a gender activist, we argue and we continue to spread this message in society that once you have an educated mother, your chances of having a healthy child are higher. Your chances of having a better educated child are higher. I mean, the same elements, the same fruits of education that we enjoy are passed down our generation to another generation. And I have not seen a situation where we have had our parents really look down on education. Even those who don't get an education and go ahead to become successful in their careers, when they have children, they make sure that they take their children to the best schools that they can, because they still believe in that education that they did not have, and they want to avail it to their children. So as student activists, we must we must keep on charging up for education. Even now that we're having more technology coming on board, we also have to think about how do we also have our voices heard louder, because what we would see in the past, student activism was better because there were no online classes. We had more physical learning, and this brought us together in a way that we could demonstrate, we could come together, we could agitate together, we had similar issues. Now, online learning is better and is becoming more accessible to more students. But again, now that student activism aspect, we need to also rethink how we can repackage it and be able to still agitate for student issues, for education issues, for democracy and good governance as well. Thank you, Karim. Those are my remarks for now. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Angel. Grateful for that also. And I'm also excited about some of the things that you talk about, because access is an issue that we continue to discuss and deal with here on the continent. Very recently here in Ghana, one of the most topical issues in the area of education is what is locally referred to the policy as the free senior high school policy. And it's split heads. It's always been a very controversial subject as it stands now in Ghana. All students at the high school level have an opportunity to go to school for free. But that has also come with its own challenges and all of that. So it's very important that you touch on that bit. But I want to bring in Monsieur Amadou in at this point in time. Monsieur Amadou will be aided by our interpreter who is also in here. So you can check with the button down here and then get to connect with us. And so if Monsieur Amadou can hear me, I want to come to you with the aid of our interpreter, obviously, and to also find out from you, especially as an African as well. I'll put the same question I put to Angel to you, and to get your own understanding, especially also drawing on your own local experiences. What would be your own remarks on the issue of activism in Africa and what the future holds for students on the continent? Okay, the deafening silence gets a little uncomfortable, but that's also some of the challenges that we'll have to deal with language barriers and all of that. But I'm not sure if we have Monsieur Amadou on, but I'll see. I'll get some more instructions from the technical team in the chat box. But that's when he is available. I see your microphone is still off. But if we're able to connect that, I come to you. But while we wait, great.
Merci Abdul Karim, merci beaucoup. Voilà, c'était un honneur et un grand plaisir pour nous de participer au nom de la Confédération estudiantine scolaire d'Afrique à ce grand panel. Voilà, nous vous remercions très, très sincèrement. Et c'est un sujet d'actualité que vous venez d'évoquer, c'est-à-dire la voie à suivre pour l'activisme étudiant en Afrique et la nécessité d'une solidarité mondiale. Voilà. Pour nous, ces dernières années ont été marquées en Afrique par un foisonnement de mobilisations sociales et citoyennes par des collectifs de jeunes étudiants. Ces derniers prennent depuis partie dans leurs pays respectifs à la réflexion et au combat, mettant en jeu des questions de société et de gouvernance sur le continent. Il ne laisse plus désormais au seul ressort des organisations syndicales, des partis politiques ou des décideurs publics. Si les travaux de recherche portant sur ces formes de mobilisation sociale des jeunes en milieu scolaire et étudiantine sont multipliés, les grilles de lecture proposées restent néanmoins descriptives et rarement comparatives. Donc, la Confédération estudiantine scolaire d'Afrique, s'inspirant des modèles d'analyse de l'actionnalisme et du processus politique, s'appuyant sur deux mouvements de contestation en Afrique fondés par des jeunes leaders d'opinion, c'est-à-dire des étudiants, la FESI, c'est-à-dire la Fédération estudiantine scolaire de Côte d'Ivoire, et l'AM, l'Association des élèves étudiants du Mali. Donc, nous montrons que les mouvements estudiantines juvéniles, coalisés ou non, sont au cœur de la vitalité démocratique du continent. Ils s'identifient comme des véritables contre-pouvoirs et engagent individuellement et collectivement, en fonction des opportunités et des contraintes du moment, les citoyens dans des systèmes de valeurs nouveaux. Et ceci en vue non seulement d'une refondation politique, mais aussi d'un changement social pour le développement. Ces mouvements constituant en outre des fenêtres d'opportunités permettant non seulement à la démocratie de ces pays de trouver de nouvelles énergies, mais également de donner de nouveaux circuits de représentation. Donc, mes chers amis, on peut remarquer ces dernières années un large éventail, surtout sur le continent africain, de mobilisation civique et sociale menées par des associations d'étudiants dans leurs pays respectifs. Ces derniers participent activement au combat pour les questions liées à la gestion sociétale, économique, politique du continent, c'est-à-dire pour le bien-être des élèves et des étudiants de leur pays respectifs. Donc là, c'est un défi qui n'accepte plus comme la seule responsabilité des syndicats, des partis politiques ou bien des décideurs. Il est vrai que les travaux scientifiques sur ces formes de mobilisation sociale des jeunes se multiplient, mais les procédures qu'ils adoptent sont descriptives et sont rarement de nature comparative. Nous visons ici à utiliser des modèles d'analyse de l'actionnalisme et du processus politique afin de démontrer que, qu'ils soient alliés ou non, ces mouvements d'étudiants sont l'expression de la vitalité démocratique du continent. Ils peuvent être considérés pour nous comme des véritables forces contestataires, individuellement et collectivement, en fonction des opportunités et des contraintes présentes. Elle implique aussi tous les citoyens du continent dans le nouveau système de valeurs. Leur but ultime n'étant pas que seulement de créer des conditions d'une réforme politique totale, mais de favoriser le changement social pour le développement. Par ailleurs, pour finir, nous voudrions tout simplement dire que ces mouvements constituent de nouvelles opportunités permettant à leur pays de renforcer ici leur démocratie, leur bien-être, mais aussi d'élargir leurs responsabilités et de représentativité dans nos différentes sociétés. Donc, comme vous n'entendez pas le français, je veux me faire l'économie du temps pour vous permettre voilà, de bien analyser et qu'on puisse continuer à bien le panel. Merci, je vous remercie très sincèrement. God bless for you. Thank you very much, dear friend. Good.
Merci, Monsieur Amadou. We're also very grateful for that particular one there. I want to first also apologize for the earlier mishap there, especially when it comes to this bit about the translation. I had indicated earlier that the interpreter would be on hand to also facilitate this process, but it appears that we had a bit of a challenge there. And so for those of you who are very handicapped like myself, when it comes to the language barrier, kindly forgive me. But with my basic school French, if I could attempt a little interpretation of some of the issues that I heard Monsieur Amadou talk about, and I would hope that I get all of them correctly. I think that I can touch on the bit that he stressed on the need for collectivization and how the student movement, whether here in Africa or more broadly across the world, need to recognize that we are better and stronger if we work together. And so continuing to work in silos may not exactly be very helpful. Just to use my own example to also drive home the point that Monsieur Amadou Diallo makes, as the world continues to come together, globalization continues to be consolidated and all of that, it is very important that even at the student level, and that is what we are doing quite well with events like this. And so we need to come together, we need to work more together and be able to address our respective needs. That way, we're stronger and we're able to take on those who lead policy directions, those who have the power and the authority to lead their respective countries and all of that. So that is great. And hopefully, after this event, as we put everything together, we are very likely going to have the English version added. And so thank you once again, merci, Monsieur Amadou, for that particular one there. I told Alex that I was going to come back to her, but I see that our time is up for this first discussion. What I'll do, I guess, is to give Alex maybe a minute or two and do same for Angel to get their concluding remarks there. Initially, you touched on some very broad issues when it comes to imperialism. As we go, Alex, I want to come back to you very quickly for some brief remarks and maybe your final bit there on this discussion that we'll be having so far. Alex.
I am very sorry, but currently I have Wi-Fi problems and I didn't do quite well.
Sorry.
No, it's my fault.
No problem. Yes, so would you be able to go ahead, or I should proceed to Angel at this point?
So what I want to say as a closing remark is that UBESU will always stand in solidarity with you, and that we really want to thank you for your important work. And I think that remembrance is very, very important in student activism, because if we remember who came before, we can also look into the future and fight for a better world. And I just want to say that solidarity is the key, like going hand in hand, fighting side by side. So that's what I want to say, and I wish you all the best for the Conclave, and please feel free always to reach out if there's anything we can do.
Thank you very much, Alex, for that very brief one. Also, we're grateful, really, really grateful for the opportunity, and of course, for also joining us. And like I said earlier, I've taken some notes from some of the issues that you touched on: imperialism, capitalism. These are some of the challenges that we'll continue to deal with. Angel, I'll come to you very briefly. What will be your parting words for all of us on this discussion that we have been having so far?
I would encourage students and young people across Africa to keep the vim. I mean, we all are trying to work out something. The other day, I was having a conversation with other young, brilliant people, and I was telling them, look at the scientists. They don't even know what they are dealing with when it comes to COVID-19. They're just trying their luck. They are moving, they are walking in the dark. And even as we are addressing mental health issues and all that, let us not get discouraged by what is happening today. Let us keep the energy going. Let us keep the focus going. Let's keep trying out where we can. Let's volunteer with our local available resources. And ASU is here to always give you that platform to network. As much as we can, we try to bring young people from all parts of the continent, from the Horn of Africa to Cape Town, to the east and to the west. So bringing together young people already is a success in it for us. And we will continue to do that very passionately, very aggressively, very diligently. And we hope the best for the present and the future. Thank you, Karim.
Thank you very much, Angel, for that. Also grateful. Monsieur Amadou, if you can hear me, I know that the language barrier is still a problem for all of us, but I can give you a minute to also round up for us, and then we'll move on to the next discussion as we have it. I'll have someone write in French for me that vos remarques finales, monsieur. So your final remarks, Monsieur Amadou.
Merci, mon cher Abdul Karim. Voilà, après avoir écouté tout un chacun, je dis que je suis vraiment ravi de participer à ce panel au nom de la Confédération estudiantine scolaire d'Afrique. C'est salvatrice et c'est novateur et c'est innovatrice que des jeunes étudiants du continent et d'ailleurs puissent s'organiser pour faire ces arts de débat et que nous puissions avoir une orientation qui soit la meilleure pour cette jeunesse africaine émergente. Parce que les potentialités ne manquent pas, l'engagement ne manque pas, les énergies sont là. Notre continent étant un continent à majorité jeune, les étudiants y prennent une part active dans le développement socio-économique de nos différents pays. Donc, je pense qu'aujourd'hui, ce panel qui a pour thème la voie à suivre pour l'activisme étudiant en Afrique et la nécessité d'une solidarité mondiale s'impose à nous tous et que nous devrions mener de façon profonde cette réflexion dans nos entités différentes afin que nous ayons des propositions très concrètes et que nous puissions mettre ça sur un document et vulgariser ces documents pour que les uns et les autres puissent s'approprier de ce document-là et d'en faire leur leitmotiv. Donc, pour ne pas monopoliser la parole, je remercie tous les participants au nom de la Confédération estudiantine scolaire d'Afrique et nous vous disons merci infiniment et à bientôt. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Monsieur Madhu. I was grateful for that also. And thank you to Kwame for coming in with interpretation at this point in time. So you saved me from the trouble of having to revisit my basic school French notes. But thank you, all of you, especially for this particular discussion as we have had it. It's been very brief, but of course, you've shared some very insightful bits there, and together we can continue with this and also have some more deliberations going forward. I want to say a very big thank you to you, Alexandra Seiba. Alexandra is a board member, European Students Union. I'm grateful, Alex, for your time today. Angel Mbuthia is the secretary for the gender desk and also international affairs here at the All Africa Students Union. We're grateful, Angel, also for your time today. Amadou Diallo has also joined us, of course, to give us that perspective and that diversity in the language and, of course, on the continent. We're grateful to all of you. And we thank the rest of you also for making time to join this particular discussion. The next discussion would be moderated by the Chief Programs Officer here at the All Africa Students Union, Madam Veronica Jiagu. She would be leading a conversation on the topic, finding our voices in our numbers, mobilization for action. My name is Abdul Karim Ibrahim. I'm going to be back after Madam Vero is done, and then we're going to continue with some more. We thank you once again for your time, and I'll hand you over to Madam Veronica Jiagu at this point in time.
Much. Thank you very much, Karim. Yeah, so it's a pleasure to join you for this discussion. So hello everyone, and you're warmly welcome to the roundtable on. Yeah, so you're welcome to the roundtable session on finding our voices in our numbers, mobilizing for action. We have exactly 40 minutes for this session, and I believe we are going to have a very exciting and insightful discussion. I would like to begin this session with reference to a point raised by several panelists in the previous session, and that has to do with the fact that there's strength in numbers. Granted that we have the numbers, the question is, how do we harness the power in our numbers to uphold the fundamental rights and freedoms of students? Students are the front line of action in addressing the conditions of education. Education as a public good, for instance, has the ability to address the common concerns and problems through collaboration and cooperation. The opportunity, however, will be lost unless students' voices are heard in the process. This highlights the importance of students' voices in society and the world at large. Students in their numbers have the ability to change conditions of education in the African continent if their voices are heard in their numbers. Sharing solidarity is not just about helping students in their campaigns and other issues, but also helping them to increase communication and cooperation among themselves, both at local and global levels, to mobilize themselves for action. In that way, their voices will be heard in their numbers, which will push the agenda at hand for better conditions of education. Joining us this morning for further discussion of this issue, we have Tapiwa Chiriga, the Secretary General of the Zimbabwe National Students Union, Ibrahim Kwabwe Mwamba, the President of the Southern Africa Students and Youth Development Association, and Hardwill Selassie Tamaklo, the President of the Graduate Students Association of Ghana. And I'll give them a few minutes to give introductory remarks, and then we'll continue to take it from there. So if Tapiwa is ready, can you start us off with the session? Thank you.
Sorry, Veronica, I just got back in the meeting. I had a technical glitch. Am I the one who's supposed to be?
Sure. All right. So in that case, if Ibrahim is ready, you can give us your opening introductory remarks.
Good afternoon, comrades. Hello?
Hello? Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for giving me this opportunity to be part of this important topic to discuss. I think I want to have just few message just to express to give maybe the Secretary General of ASU that I've just joined in late. As you are aware that Zambia is having elections in next month, we'll be voting our president. So it has been not easy for me to be part of this activity because I'm part of the election that are going on. But just to join in, though I won't be with you guys for a long time, that I would like to take this opportunity to appreciate that I'm part of this important discussion. I'm the president for SACIDA, Southern African Student Development Association, and also I'm a student at University of Lusaka, where I'm studying international political science in international relations, and also I'm also how can I say it? Hello?
Please go ahead. We can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes,
yeah,
you can.
So I'm a student at University of Lusaka, yeah, where I'm studying political science and international relations. Thank you.
Hello, Ibrahim. Hello. All right, so it appears Ibrahim has dropped, his line has dropped. So we'll move on to Hartwell. If you're ready for us, Hartwell. Okay, sorry, Ibrahim is back on. So please continue. You went off briefly. Hello. All right, it appears we have challenges connecting with Ibrahim. So let's move on to Hartwell, who is the president of the Graduate Student Association of Ghana. If you're ready for us, you can come on. Thanks.
Yeah, good afternoon, Veronica. And good afternoon to all the panelists, as well as everybody listening to us today. I'm very grateful to be part of this conclave, to participate in this discussion. Personally, I want to say that if we're talking about mobilizing students for our voices to be heard, here in Ghana, we can trace mobilization of students way back to the days of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And then we can also see that the history of Ghana's political democracy cannot be written or mentioned without talking about the role students played in the democracy of our country. Our students have been very active as far as the democracy and then the political activities in Ghana are concerned. Way back in 1980s, before Ghana could boldly be proud of the multi-party democracy we are talking about today, students were there to ensure that at the time that the PNDC government lacked the political will to bring the multi-party democracy that we are enjoying today, the students of Ghana joined force with other civil society groups to demonstrate for this to happen. In addition to that, we can trace our student activism being very active in the sense that in Ghana today, before a political party can boast of winning election in Ghana, if you don't have the support of the students, you would not get the what you want. You will not win the election. This actually played out practically in our 2016 election, when we realized that because of the free SHS policy that the current ruling government brought on board, students were so agitated and voted for the NPP government. At that time, teacher trainees allowance was cancelled by the erstwhile government, and also utility bills were offloaded from government, and the burden was now laid on the shoulders of the students. This obnoxious policies angered the students to vote against government. So if we are talking about our students' activism, you realize that students have been very effective in mobilization and ensuring that the government is accountable. The students also make sure that the ideologies of political parties are brought down to the understanding of everybody. Aside that, students in Ghana also make sure that they hold government or politicians accountable for their promises and the right things that they are supposed to do for the country to move on. So it is very necessary that in these days, we ensure that we mobilize students to be on board, so that our democracy and accountability that we want, whatever we need as a country can be given to us. Veronica, please, can you hear me?
Yes, we are following.
Yes. So it's a good discussion we are having today to look at how best we can mobilize our students in this era. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Haswell, for your remarks. You raised some very critical points, and we'll interrogate them further as we go along. And right now, Tapiwa is ready to share his remarks, so we'll go to him. And before then, we've been joined by Dr. Maish Riza of the Commonwealth Students Association. She's the chairperson of the association. So she will join as one of the panelists for this discussion. We will get to her later on. But for now, Tapiwa, you can come on, thanks.
Thank you, Veronica, and revolutionary greetings and salutations to everyone on this platform today and to the broader students movement in Africa and over the world. We are elated to be receiving such solidarity even from students movement outside of the continent. We are also elated of the support and unity that we are seeing being displayed here, particularly the clarity of thought and unity in as far as leadership and the unit of purpose from the All Africa Students Union, as we can see here. I am Tapiwa Nashi Chiliga, and I am the National Secretary General of the Zimbabwe National Students Union here in Zimbabwe. I am a fifth-year law student at the Midland State University in Gweru in Zimbabwe. And I find it an honor to be speaking to all of you here today. Am I audible? Hello, Veronica, am I audible?
Yes, you are. We are following.
Okay, thank you very much. It is quite an honor to be speaking to issues around mobilization, particularly mobilizing for action, especially on a momentous day like today, where we commemorate the heroic sacrifice that was made by the students of South Africa in 1976 on the 16th of June, many years ago, 40-something years ago today. And it should always make us sure that we not only commemorate, we not only remember, we not only honor those brave students who took to the streets to challenge apartheid, injustice, and inequality, but we should also make sure that we take inspiration and motivation, because some of the issues that made those young men and women to rise into the streets of Soweto in South Africa are still prevalent in some of our countries today. We are still failing to access education. Some of us here in Zimbabwe, I myself have spent 2 weeks in prison for simply asking for affordable education and an end to repression as far as the Students' Union is concerned. Right now, as I speak, our former Secretary General was sentenced to 14 months in prison for allegedly blowing a whistle, which the state says amounted to inciting violence. As I speak today, the Zimbabwean government is willing to introduce a bill into law that will ban all student unions that are not exactly in line with their line of thought. So that is the kind of trouble we find ourselves in. So as we celebrate the International Day of the African Child, we should always remember that the struggle is not over. It is only turned, because ours is not a struggle or a fight that is seasonal. It is a fight that will always go on, because issues around students, issues around young people's participation in governance will always continue. We are elated here, especially in Zimbabwe, for the support that we've been receiving from all corners of the world as far as our campaigns are going. And here in Zimbabwe, in as far as mobilization is concerned, we have managed to prevail even in the face of persecution, even in the face of harassment, even in the face of detentions, even in the face of beatings, surveillance and arrests. But we have managed to continue mobilizing for action each day, and our membership is growing. How are we doing it, and how should we continue doing it, is the question. It is more of making sure that we mobilize ourselves across the continent, more beyond rhetoric, more beyond personalities, more beyond the political figures that have desecrated on the ideals and values and fundamental freedoms, but to make sure that we mobilize ourselves and each other around ideas of freedom, around ideas of excellence, and making sure that all basic social services are available to everyone. Right now, as we speak, the coronavirus pandemic has made sure that 60% of Zimbabwean students, as I speak now, cannot access online learning. And with the third wave of the COVID-19 pandemic coming into force in Zimbabwe with lockdowns announced, it means that a lot of students will fail to access education for the second year running again. But we should also never forget to mobilize even those who are still in high school, because the thing has always been around making sure that we mobilize each other in higher and tertiary education institutions, but we've always forgotten those who are seeking primary and secondary education. We are very sure that the Dakar Declaration mandates every country in Africa to fund the education sector adequately, but we've seen an anomaly in our countries where the defense industries and other industries are funded way more, probably 7 times more than how our education systems are funded. It's an anomaly that we have probably accepted as normal, but it's something that we cannot continue to accept. So yes, my word is, let us mobilize each other, ourselves, and even those who might not be exactly agreeing with us around ideas, around freedom, around justice, around solidarity, around making sure that education is available to everyone, around a better Africa that we want. And when we mobilize each other like that, we should always remember that in travel, we will always prevail through solidarity. Thank you very much. I think I will pause here and wait for questions later.
Thank you very much, Kapiwa, for your remarks. Very important point you raised. I think the point you raised about mobilizing around ideals and values rather than around personalities is a very important one that we should really note. And then also mobilizing students at the lower levels, basic high school levels, and not just at the higher institutions, also a very important point. We'll now move to Dr. Maish Riza, if you're ready. We'll invite you to present your remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Veronica. And thank you so much for giving me the floor. My warmest greetings to the panelists and attendees of the African Students' Day. I am Dr. Maisha Reza, and I'm the chairperson of the Commonwealth Students Association. And I'm deeply honored to have been invited today to express my solidarity with African students in celebration of African Students' Day. The Commonwealth Students Association is a coalescence of student organizations within the Commonwealth across 54 countries, established in 2012 at the 18th Conference of Commonwealth Education Ministers in Mauritius. Our role is to be an independent advocate of students throughout the Commonwealth, bringing together students' concerns to the forefront of educational development. We form the bridge between national student organizations and education ministers on the Commonwealth platform and focus on empowering and building the capacity of these organizations and Students' Union. Today we celebrate Africa Students' Day, a day that we celebrate the power and revolution that African students standing in solidarity have made in the past, pushing for revolutionary changes, leading by example, and mobilizing communities for progress and prosperity. We also honor student leaders that sacrifice their time and put their heart and blood and tears into movements to push for agendas to make learning and thriving better for all students. Student movements in different countries and different regions have various priorities, but we are all bound together with the same string, the string that would ensure that every student, every child, every young person, regardless of race, language, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, receives the best possible chance of success and expression of one's highest potential. Student leadership requires integrity, kindness, empathy, courage, and resilience, just to name a few of the traits that we learn, develop, and embody on our journeys. Since February 2018, the CSA has responded to several instances of violence against students with the greatest concentrations of cases in the Africa region. On 27th of February 2018, anti-riot police officers fatally wounded Evans Njoroge, Secretary General of the Students Association of Meru University, during student protests of tuition fee increase at the Kenyan University. Later that year, 110 girls from Technical College in Yobe State in Nigeria were abducted by Boko Haram insurgents. We stood in solidarity and we condemned these. Students have historically played a critical role, not just for education, but for integral issues that affect us as a society. After all, educational institutes are a microcosm of society, and students and youth make up critical elements of that social fabric. With the COVID-19 pandemic hanging over us this past year, the world is now at crossroads, with injustice, racism, oppression, chaos, corruption resurfacing through the cracks that world leaders have often tried to hide. This COVID-19 pandemic has alas exposed all of these shortcomings. It is time for our students to unite, not just in Africa, but around the world, and come across from different regions to learn from one another, to support one another as we take on these global challenges. The Commonwealth Students Association has been very proud to be standing alongside the astute, brilliant, and powerful student movements in the All Africa Student Unions, with a vision to synergize our talents, our voices, and stand in unity as we face the challenges that are going on in the world right now and the ones to come in future. We have a seemingly insurmountable challenges in front of us, but I do believe that partnerships, collaborations, and sharing of resources in a trustworthy environment will help us overcome these one step at a time. Once again, you should be very proud of yourselves and encourage one another to keep marching on. I wish you a wonderful celebration together on Africa Students' Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Maisha Rita, for your remarks. Very important points raised here relating to the importance of partnerships, collaboration, and sharing of resources to address the challenges that confront students, not just in Africa, but across the globe. Before I move to questions, can we have Ibrahim? Is Ibrahim on now? Okay, so if Ibrahim is not here with us, before you leave, Dr. Maisha, can I ask you a question relating to the proposal or the point you raised about partnerships and collaboration? How do we position that against what most people expect when it comes to student activism? Most people expect spontaneous action, response to issues that come up, as against, continuous engagement, collaboration, and partnership. What do you think we could do to get everybody to mobilize around the issues that you've identified, around the injustices, around the racism and other issues that continue to plague student movement, and the differences in terms of ideology as to the approach to use to address these challenges?
Thank you, Veronica, for the question. I think my colleague might be speaking later from the Global Student Forum. And one of the things that we have been doing, we have been working together, both All Africa Students Union, Commonwealth Students Association, the European Students Union. We have been working together. It's not the first time. We've been working together for some time now. Last year, we've been working very actively and fighting against injustice on children, vulnerable children across the world as part of the 100 Million campaign. We sit together on the board of the 100 Million campaign, fighting for justice for every child. And I think that, all of us, it is really a very positive step for all of these regional and global agencies and student unions to come together and stand in solidarity and have a united voice. And I think that's very important. That's why we as the CSA also advocate for national student organizations, so that there's one unified, solid voice that actually advocates for students within each country. So I think we're going in the right direction. We're already going in the right direction. There will be obstacles and there are challenges. There will be a lot of obstacles that we need to overcome. But I think us having this platform, us speaking on this platform for Africa Students Day, I think it's testament to the fact that we have one another's backs as a region, as different regions and as different organizations. So I think we're already going in the right step in terms of standing in solidarity and having unified voices moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe my question didn't come out very clearly. What I want to know is whether spontaneous mass action, okay, and collaboration, constructive dialogue are mutually exclusive or complementary. Because it seems a set of one group expects spontaneous action when issues come up. Others are more prone towards constructive dialogue. I want to know whether they are mutually exclusive or complementary.
Not at all. I mean, now that question is very clear, Veronica. I think both is absolutely required. It really depends on the different political environment and different climate that we're working in. For example, in Singapore, we can't have protests. There is a ban against protesting or mass protesting on the streets. So we have to definitely take the road of the diplomatic dialogues. And I think in countries that's allowed, that's where you can have protests to make your voices heard, that is definitely an option. I think we need to think about what kind of environment we're in, what kind of country we're in, abiding by the laws and the regulations of that country. We should do everything we can. We should have dialogues, we should have high-level meetings, we should be on the ground as well, making our voices heard. So none of them are mutually exclusive. They all need to come together. Student movement is never, in silo, or there's no one way of doing it. We need to use all our opportunities and all our methods that we can in order to get our voices heard. So definitely they're complementary and they go very well hand in hand together, Veronica.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Maisha. So I'll invite Tapiwa or Hartwell to come in at this point. If you have any thoughts on the question I just asked, you can please come in and share your views.
Sorry, Veronica, can you repeat the question?
Hello? Yeah, so I was asking, so I asked about the difference or the inclination towards spontaneous mass action as against collaboration, constructive dialogue, depending on context, depending on political ideology. And I was asking whether they are mutually exclusive or complementary approaches that we could use for mobilization to address the challenges that face students. Your views on that?
Okay, thank you very much. We would like to believe that spontaneous mass action is a means of showing displeasure. It is also a means of forcing dialogue. It is also a means of making sure that whoever that you are protesting against, whatever issue that you are fighting for, it is brought to the attention. It is brought to that. Am I audible? Sorry, Veronica, am I still audible?
Yes, you're. Yes, you're.
Okay, thank you. So as I was saying, dialogue and mass action are not mutually exclusive, but work together, because mass action and protest actually draw the authorities or whoever you are protesting against the attention of the problems that you are facing, the attention of the issues that you are against or you are advocating. So yes, I can safely and definitively say that mass action and dialogue or collaboration are not mutually exclusive, but rather they work together in making sure that, number one, mass action forces everyone to the table. It brings the issues to the attention of everyone, and then you can then collaborate and have a dialogue, which I think will produce results that are desirable for all parties. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tapiwa. Is Castle still on?
Yeah, I'm back.
Right. So do you have any views on this particular issue?
Please, I think you would have to take the question because I was off. My internet is actually giving me a problem. So you'd have to repeat the question so that I know what you're talking about.
Okay. So I was asking about the which approach you think is best suited for mobilization to address the issues that face students. Whether you would propose spontaneous mass action or constructive dialogue with authorities as a student union. Which one do you think is the best approach? And do you think they are mutually exclusive or they can complement each other? So that's basically what I was asking.
Okay, thank you so much. I think they have to be complementing each other because we have situations that after the roundtable discussion, government seems to still not understand why students would want to agitate for or push for certain things to happen. Now we realize that democracy is actually bringing down that aggressiveness in student activism. So we have resorted to more roundtable discussions with authorities. But if persuasion fails, force must be applied. So in a situation where we try to go behind doors to push for things to happen in our favor and authorities do not mind us, then our youthful exuberance will still come to play in this case. And then we would have to go the other way, push with the demonstrations to ensure that our voices are heard.
Okay. Okay. So I suppose you've managed to get some desired changes effected through some of these approaches.
Yes, a lot of them. We've had instances where, for a recent example would be in the height of COVID-19, when students were public universities and let me say all the tertiary institutions were asked by government to go virtual so that the academic year or the semester can be concluded. It came with all kinds of changes. Students have to now use data. So in that situation too, students were no longer on campus. So the fees that students have paid for utility user fees and stuffs like that on campus, because they are gone home, they are no more using it. And on the other hand, they have to spend extra money to buy data to have their lectures and exams online. So students used the dialogue means with government to persuade government to reduce school fees, either to reduce or
Hello? Hello? Well, it appears Katso has dropped. Hello? Hello? All right, so while we wait for Hato to get back, I would like to announce that you can post your questions or comments in the chat box, and then we'll read it out. We'll ask the panelists to respond to them as we go along. So you have the opportunity to also bring your questions on board. Hato, are you back on? All right. Otherwise, let me ask them to Tapiwa. When we talk about mobilization, it's important that as student leaders, you remain connected to your constituents. That's the students you lead. How can you improve communication, information sharing, cooperation with your base to ensure that everybody is carried along, even as you fight or you represent their causes?
Thank you. I think and believe that what we are doing in the Zimbabwe National Students Union is what I would advise everyone to do, making sure that you have sound and firm structures that are always there, even in crisis or even when everything is okay. You should be having a clear communication strategy, and most importantly, structures to communicate to, because you cannot suddenly wake up with a base tomorrow because you are mobilizing for action. But if you have a base that is always there, a base that makes sure that your program of action is promulgated each and every day, you can easily mobilize because you have clear structures which have membership that each of the members has a clear duty and a clear responsibility on making sure that you mobilize. And I think that is the major advantage you can have when you have structures that are clear, and making sure that you keep in constant touch with them in line with, of course, your communication strategy. So I think it's two things: having a communication strategy and having clear structures that are always on the ground, and make sure that they are in touch with the base to the last drop of membership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Katol, are you back on? All right. Is Dr. Maisha still on?
Yes, I am.
Yes. Please, can you share any perspectives relating to keeping in touch with the base?
Yes, of course. So let me share with you how the CSA does it. We have multiple modes of communication, of course. So anytime we have an event or any movement that we're doing, or any campaigns that we're doing that we need assistance on, or we need solidarity on, or even participation on, for example, we really use our social media very well. We use our Instagram, we use Twitter, we use Facebook, all the three different platforms to communicate with them. On top of that, we have a membership database where we only work with national student organizations. So we don't tend to email individual students like that. We would send out an email, send out information to all of the national student organizations or student organization presidents from each university, if there are no national student organizations. And we expect that they are going to cascade that information down to their students. Basically, they have that access to that email database of each university students, and they are going to pass that message on. So we have a very, what would I call it? A cascading model where we, reach out to national student organizations or student union presidents and expect that they are going to pass the message on. And that has been quite successful over the past 2 years of our term.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your contributions. Are there any questions from the participants you'd like to ask? Let me check the chat box. All right, so I don't see any questions, any more questions for our panelists. Therefore, I'm going to end this session and then invite Karim to come in for the very final roundtable. Thank you so much, Tapiwa, Dr. Maisha, Catwell, and Ibrahim for your time.
Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you. We appreciate for your time.
Hi, well.
Yeah.
Great. So,
yeah,
I should think that you're done with this discussion, I believe.
Sure, we are. Yeah.
Great. And I enjoyed it also. Another very insightful conversation, especially for some of the very interesting bits that Dr. Mesha, for instance, raises. Are things that definitely we need to continue with and have more conversation on. I am told that Suniva is joining us now. Earlier, she was part of the people who were built to deliver global solidarity messages. At the time, she was not on, told by the technical team that they are trying to raise her back on for a very quick address from her end. But we should be ending very soon, but there's also a very important element that we need to deal with today as part of the Africa Students Conclave. But of course, I need to say one more time, a big thank you to all of you. You've made this conversation very interesting so far. We're going to be sharing with you pretty shortly, as we put that on the screen and take you through the African Student Rights Charter. It is a document that has been prepared by the All Africa Students Union, led by the Student Rights Working Group, to also more or less help us appreciate what exactly the demands really are. And the charter, among many other things, is supposed to be a statement that captures our expectations as African students and what our demands really are. Some issues that we think that we should never compromise on, and I'll be sharing the details of all of those things with you. When we are done, I'll be very happy to hear your contributions, your questions, your comments on all of that, and together we'll be able to prepare a much detailed document that we can work with here on the African continent as we try to consolidate the issues here for all of us. And so we'll come to that shortly, but Suniva Fogin Hostka, I hope I got your name rightly, Suniva, with this one. Suniva is with Sai, and she's also joining us for a brief solidarity message, and from there we'll get on to the African Student Rights Charter. Suniva, you're welcome.
Thank you. I think you did a pretty good job on my name. It's really difficult, even for some Norwegians. So I mean, I wasn't expecting it to be perfect. It's even a Norwegian letter in there. Thank you for having me.
My favorite person from there is Ola Gunnar.
Yeah, he has one of those as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I see that. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Yes, and thank you so much for the invitation. I was in earlier today and got to hear sort of a small piece of your conclave. And I mean, I wish I could be here all day with you because the program looked really interesting. But I happen to be chairing the board meeting of my organization at the same time. So instead of being with you guys, I'm discussing long-term budgets and strategies, which is not as fun, but unfortunately very necessary. Now, I'm very honored to address you. My name is, as you said, Suniva Folgen Høyskar. I'm the president of SAI, which is Norwegian Students and Academics International Assistance Fund. And I first want to begin by congratulating you on the African Students' Day and wish you a good conclave. This year marks 60 years since student activists in Norway formed SAI in order to show solidarity with the Black students who were fighting apartheid, the apartheid system in South Africa. Now, in the 60 years since, and maybe especially the present, have clearly shown that the important, sort of the extremely important role that students play in the struggle for democracy and human rights. And I think also this conclave here today proves the continuing importance and relevance, as I saw was one of your points, both of student activism, but also of solidarity. Because all over the world, even in the midst of this pandemic, students are raising their voices for a better society. And if we take a look at history, students organizing is often the first step before large parts of society follows and you see actual positive change. And sometimes when you don't see positive change and when you see huge protests, you can always count on that when the protests do subside, when people start giving up, the students are the last ones to do that. Students have this amazing resilience when it comes to protesting injustice. And as our fellow students struggle these days, we also have to strive to make their issues known to a broader public, and also we must come together in solidarity for them. And I want to highlight and show some special solidarity with our friends in Zimbabwe, where SAI works with the student union SINASU. And for a long time now, but worse in this recent year, many students have been arrested on dubious charges, some even multiple times, by a state and police that feel threatened by their activism. They face beatings, they face torture and disappearances. Students have even been arrested for simply wearing the union's T-shirt, which is, I think, the definition of dubious charges. And this is all for raising their voice for a just Zimbabwe. And I know from the students in SINASU that sometimes that is extremely difficult, but I have to say I'm so impressed by how you always carry on, come what may from the authorities. And I want you to remember that, and this probably goes for other student union in other African countries as well, that they only repress you because they fear you. They fear your unity and they fear your struggle. So that means you should definitely keep on going. But being a student activist is extremely risky in many countries. And in addition to the physical and sort of practical consequences that you have from student activism, many authorities are also using the media these days much more actively to change the narrative and to frame student activists as rebels, terrorists, and enemies of the state. And they do this to legitimize the oppression of student activists. And inside, we wanted to bring attention to this issue because we see it as a very big threat to student activism. And so we made a campaign this March called Can You Hear Me Now?, where we tried to showcase how authorities try to frame student activists and then sort of frame it against what student activists are actually fighting for. So in the campaign, we made videos, social media posters, and also Zoom backgrounds, where we sort of used the image that the authorities were trying to portray, and then we sort of ask the audience to unmute in order to hear the real message. And we got some very positive attention on that. So hopefully, at least the public in Norway are more aware of this framing. But students are being sort of attacked in so many ways, and this narrative building against students can help turn public opinion against the struggle of students, which is one of the scariest things, I think, for a student movement, that the public even thinks that their struggle isn't worth fighting. And this, paired with new expansive terrorism legislation in almost all countries in the world, means that student activists face tremendous barriers in their struggle for what is basic human rights. So I think we need to make that more known, and we need to also challenge states in how they are delegitimizing and criminalizing student activism. Because as student activists, we are stronger together, which many of you have mentioned today. And I have to say, I'm so impressed by the efforts you are making to make the African Charter on the Rights of Students. I am so looking forward to seeing the results of that work and to be inspired by it inside. Because students are maybe the clearest example there is of human rights defenders globally. And so we have to cherish and we have to support student activists. Student activists are today, in too many instances, alone in their struggle, and we have to make sure that they don't feel alone. And therefore, it's so important to have meetings like this, that you share experiences across borders, across age groups, across continents, and that we also show solidarity with each other when we are in difficult situations. So thank you so much for having this conclave. It is really, really inspiring, and I'm very happy to send you greetings from SAI. We look forward to seeing the results of the conclave. And with that, I want to say good luck with the rest of your conclave, and thanks so much for having me. And then I have to rush back to my board meeting soon, but thanks.
We're grateful, Sunniva, for this very insightful one also. And we appreciate the difficulty that you are in at this moment, but we're excited that you still made some time to join us. We've taken note of all the very beautiful things that you have shared with us. We're going to continue with a conversation from here. Thank you. Thank you once again, Sunniva, for that bit there. And like I mentioned to you all earlier, what we're going to proceed to do at this point in time is to share with you excerpts of the African Student Rights Charter. And we're going to share the screen with you pretty shortly. And then you get to know the details there. So what I'm going to essentially do for you at this moment is to take you through the charter and have you get an insight into what exactly we're looking at here. And I should also note that this is a document put together by the All Africa Students Union, led by the Student Rights Working Group. Mr. Dunton has been leading the work on this particular bit here. And there's quite a number of very interesting bits that I would be very happy if, after we go through it, you also are able to share your thoughts and contributions with us, because we want to make this document better. We want to make it encapsulate the true values and expectations of the African student. And based on that, we would have some working document to continue with our advocacy and work with governments, international partners, and all the other stakeholders within the education ecosystem. And so very quickly, as you can all see here, and I would have the team also help me scroll this as we go forward. So in past times, I mean, students have been at the forefront of various actions that have led to the liberation of countries from colonial rule on the continent. These students have also played key roles in the setting up of various institutions that have contributed massively to the advancement of the African continent. You would note also that globally, students have been a part of various actions that have been geared towards the proliferation of fresh ideologies, policies, and initiatives that have changed the course of their own societies. And for centuries, students have always had a voice and been at the core of education-related matters. Very recently in South Africa, we saw the Fees Must Fall movement, how it also moved on into the arena of decolonization at Oxford University. We saw the attempt to remove edifices or statues that represent colonial oppression and all of that. So students continue to do this. There's also the need for students to be recognized as equal partners. And this element is oftentimes missing in the realization of the Africa we all want, with special reference to education. And again, students have a critical role to play on the continent, especially when it comes to the harmonization of education on the continent, and also the quality of education that is delivered here on the continent. Understanding their needs, the rights, the privileges, and the roles that students can play would be very critical and can be also very rewarding for all stakeholders in that respect. So therefore, there's the need for an African Students Charter that is committed to ensuring that no student is left behind. And we stress on this because we recognize the essence of access. And earlier, we were told by Angel, for instance, what access to education can mean for many other people. And the evidence is available in several research conducted that when women or mothers have education, it has implications on the health of their children, on the mortality of the children, and many other instances like that. So that's very important. Nobody should be left behind. And it must also be subjected, must not be subjected to any form of injustice. And we also hope that students or everybody are brought closer to the decision-making table to be seen and to be heard. So the charter sets out to do a couple of things. And here we'll scroll up for you to also see some of the issues that we are highlighting there. It sets out, one, the aspirations of students across the continent. Two, the various themes for collaboration among African, two will be the rights and privileges of the African students, and three, the various themes for collaboration among African student leaders and other stakeholders. This is part of what we are doing currently and what we have been doing over the period, especially here at the All Africa Students Union. That is not to say that we have not encountered any challenges, but the point is that we very much appreciate the essence of all of these things. And that's why we're always very happy that when we call on you, you join us to have some of these conversations and all of that. So again, just to also note that the principles and all the other underpinnings of the African Student Charter will be defined and agreed upon by national student representatives from across the continent. This is critical because we also appreciate the essence of working together and getting a sense of representation because oftentimes as students, we complain about the fact that we don't get to be part as stakeholders. And so when we do, what we essentially are able to do and want to continue to also do is to have our member unions and other representatives also participate, because this is very critical. The African Student Charter will also take a constitutive approach to ensure that it captures the interest of all student unions, to ensure that ownership is by the individual national student unions, but that is also very critical. What we oftentimes do not see is that sort of united front. So you see the National Union of Ghana students, you see the student union movement in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, in Kenya, in other places doing things in isolation. We want to integrate all of that and bring together the might and the full force of the student union across the continent to be able to project and go forward in many things. Again, the African Student Charter is expected to also ensure that students' voices are rekindled to play active roles in national and continental development. Some of the areas to be considered under the Charter may include, of course, but are not limited to, these 11 very important elements that we have outlined for you here. And here's where we will need your contribution and your insights even the most, because these are not by any measure exhaustive of all the issues that we want to capture. We'll be very happy if you are also able to join us and share with us your own thoughts and contributions. So the first bit is about student and academic mobility. Not to belabor this point, but you will appreciate that things are very difficult when it comes to mobility here on the continent. We would want to look at this as one of the strategic areas that we need to develop. And so the African Student Charter will be focusing and looking quite strongly at this particular subject here. Inclusion. It is one of the things that we fail to do a lot here on the continent and even more broadly across the world. Today, the world is growing more progressive. We need to continue to integrate, especially people who are of minority backgrounds, people who belong to the LGBTQI plus group, people who are living with disabilities, and generally people who belong to ethnic, religious minorities, among many other things. This is critical because the justice that we want to build, the better Africa that we want to continue to be part of, would not arrive unless students like you and I contribute in that particular regard. So inclusion is very important to us. Rights and privileges of students. The challenge we continue to also have is that we have not been able to properly integrate our issues. And so Ghanaians may have their own issues, people in Cote d'Ivoire may have their own issues, but we don't seem to have a common, unified appreciation of rights and privileges of the students across the continent. And we believe that the African Student Charter will serve as a very important platform and document upon which we would have some of this conversation and be able to drive that point home even further. Gender parity is critical. Just yesterday, the Africa Afrobarometer survey was presented. And if you look at the countries that were looked at here, and particularly if you look at, say, Ghana, where the All Africa Students Union is headquartered, you would find that on issues of gender parity in areas of employment and other very important critical aspects, we continue to see a disparity and the inequality continues to grow. We are doing well by way of getting more women or girl children or girl child into school, but the challenge is that the disparity continues to exist. ASU wants to play a critical role in that particular respect. Student leadership, for instance, we don't find a lot of women in many parts of Africa taking an active role in that. Gender parity is essential to us. We appreciate the work that the likes of Claudia Corte are doing here at the All Africa Students Union, and we'll be very happy to have all of them come on board, and the rest of you really, so that we even champion this further. Number 5 will be quality education. I mean, one cannot stress the essence of that enough. The Sustainable Development Goals, Goal 4 especially, is looking at this. ASU is doing a lot of work in that area and would want to even take it a notch further. And so quality education also features prominently among the issues that we are looking to address here. And then again, higher education governance. You would recall that in the midst of the fees must fall movement in South Africa and all of that, the Vice Chancellor of Witwatersrand came under serious critique in respect of how management of schools had gone about things. Very recently also, Professor Habib, again from University of Wits in South Africa, also playing some active role in SOAS, came under serious critique because of some remarks that he had made in respect of minority groups in the student movement and all of that. We need to really be able to change how things are done in higher education governance. The sort of tokenistic representation that students get on university councils, among other things, would need to change. But that change would come if we are able to come together with a consolidated view on what exactly we want to achieve. And that is what ASU, under the leadership of His Excellency, Mr. Peter Koji, wants to achieve with this. So this is also very important for us. Harmonization of African higher education. And this is a leap towards the practical involvement of students at the national levels. So this is also another very important thematic area we want to critically look at. Number 8 would be student welfare. And again, this is critical. It is critical because as we continue to see, just recently, a few days ago, ASU issued a statement from the Democracy and Good Governance Working Group, together with Student Rights, about the brutalities that have been meted out to students in Eswatini. These are students who are basically making their voice known on some of the issues that they disagree with. In Zimbabwe also, as we have got to learn today from the discussion that we have had, the continuous attempt by governments to suppress students and to mete out some force against them when they come out with their own issues or protest and all of that is something that we need to address. Here in Ghana a few years ago, when students who wanted to get access to professional legal education thought that they were being treated unfairly and decided to go out there and protest, the police force in this country came out rather very aggressively towards them, and quite ironically, students had to seek refuge at the Canadian embassy here in Ghana. And it could not get worse than that. And so we need to really address some of these issues on student welfare, and we need to do that with a common voice on the continent. Again, academic freedom. All across the continent, we see time and again governments attempt to control institutions of higher learning or universities. We have seen that in Uganda, activists stood up quite firmly to fight against that. Here in Ghana, the former director of the Institute of African Studies, Professor Akusi Adomako, who is also a leader at the Africa Studies group here on the continent, have all joined voices to talk about the fact that we need to really continue to ensure that we get a sort of freedom at institutions of higher learning so that academic freedom would be protected. That is something that ASU is particularly interested in, and this charter would address that also. And then also number 10 would be the recognition of qualification. Again, here's an area that we need to also avert our minds to, so that we have a proper recognition and accreditation of certification here on the continent. Because we continue to have an issue just recently, and that again is another very troublesome problem here on the continent. In Nigeria, we had some of our friends and comrades complain, particularly in the University of Calabar, students who had been studying pharmacy for well over 4 years now, and we're getting into the 5th year of their education, only to be told by the management of the University of Calabar that they did not have accreditation to run that program. And so they had to either go back and start all over again or find a new school. this sort of injustice that is meted out to students on the continent, and oftentimes they have nobody to speak for them and on this. With this charter, we hope that if problems of that nature happen in Nigeria, wherever you are on the continent, you'll be able to have an idea of what is going on, and together we can fight to address it. And finally, skill mobility is also a very crucial aspect of what we need to do. Already, we have the capacity building working group at ASU. We're doing some works, we're working on some publications and all of that to also get some more insights. We do appreciate that skill training is critical to the development of students on the continent more broadly. And we want to, again, using this charter, look at this subject as another very important bit. So essentially, this charter will encourage various stakeholders, such as the African Union, the Association of African Universities, ministries of education on the continent, higher education institutions, and heads of educational institutions to uphold the basic rights and privileges of students under this charter as a matter of educational and, of course, social justice. We're not demanding for anything extraordinary if we make some of these very basic demands. And we're committed to doing that. And the steps that we want to take, very finally, as I wrap up on this and take your questions, your contributions, and any other thing that you want to bring to bear on this particular bit that we are discussing now. The steps, 3 basic steps that we intend to follow through with. Number 1 will be a preliminary research to gather areas of cooperation on the African Students Charter. As you are very much aware, this is to give you an insight into what ASU intends to do. Secondly, we're going to hold discussions on this preliminary draft of the African Students Charter to also allow for a more extensive deliberation on the issues that we have outlined. And thirdly, a technical committee consisting of both national student leaders and all African Students Union executives to put together a final draft of the African Students Charter for adoption and dissemination. So here are the issues there, and this is to provide for all of you is here what we intend to do with the African Students Charter and how you can also contribute to the realization of this very important, very critical document that the All Africa Students Union is championing. And so once again, at this point in time, I would open the floor for you all to join me with your own contributions, your questions, anything that you would like to know. Do well to communicate with us, and let's have a conversation on this one. I want to thank you, all of you, and have you join me at this point in time. Thank you. And I should also note that you are at liberty to, if you want, drop a question or your contribution in the chat box. We have just a few minutes more to go on this one. I'll do well to read that to the hearing of everyone else. And if we need any of our technical guys like Mr. Dontin himself to come in and answer some of the questions, we'll draw him in here to do that. But so at this point, again, I would be very happy if you could join me with your own contributions. Okay, I suppose this, by the fact that I am not getting any contributions or questions, I suppose that this is quite clear enough, and everybody pretty much understands this. And or maybe you would want some more time later to be able to come in with a contribution. So what I want to do at this point in time is to share with you the email of Mr. Adontin. He's been leading the work on this particular charter, so that you can send to him via mail any contributions, any issues that you want to raise with the charter, because we value your contributions. If this is going to be successful, we'd appreciate that you all join us. And so you may want to check the chat box there. And of course, we are sharing this also on the screen. So Adontin at asuonline.org. That is where you can send your email to, and then we'll be very happy to take your submissions on board, and then we'll proceed from there. So thank you very much once again on this one, Adontin at asuonline.com, and then we can proceed from there. Very shortly, we'll be ending this particular webinar today. It has been a very interesting one. Definitely the challenges have been there, network issues and all of that, but we've been able to sail through and do this rather very seamlessly. So I want to thank everybody, and as we try and wrap up, let me extend once again our deepest appreciation to all of you for making it to this event today. And then also I should note that some of you have sent in some messages. Of course, these are not necessarily those for the general public. We'll take note of them, and then we'll address them as and when we can. But big appreciation to you, His Excellency Peter Kwesi Koji. He is the Secretary General of the All Africa Students Union, and it's under his leadership that we have been able to organize this, and we're grateful, sir, always for leading the cause of students on the African continent. We thank also the Global Student Forum and the Executive Director, Mr. Sebastian Abega, also for being available today and for very insightful remarks that you shared with us earlier. Martina Damanian has also been here with us today. Thank you very much, Martinian, for your contribution today. Martinian is with the European Students Union, and not so long ago, you had Soniva Forgin Hochka. She is with SIDE. Soniva had to leave us because she had other issues to also attend to. Grateful to you, Soniva, for also joining us. We have had members from the Commonwealth Students Union participate and join the conversation today. Dr. Meisha Reza has also been here with us. Thank you very much, Dr. Meisha, for joining us today here on the African Students Conclave event, as we have had it. Tracy Elino Kube could not join us, but we're grateful. Alexandria from Austria. Alexandria Seiba is a board member, European Students Union. Thank you very much. Amadou Bialo, Monsieur, Gracia, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much also for joining us. And Angel Mbusia is the secretary for the gender desk here at the All Africa Students Union, also in charge of international affairs at the All Africa Students Union. Thank you very much, Angel, and we hope that you continue to enjoy your stay here in Ghana. And Madam Veronica Giagu is the Chief Programs Officer. You have her moderate the second discussion here. Thank you very much, Madam Veronica, for your time also. Tapiwa Shiriga has also been here with us. Thank you very, very much, Tapiwa, for your very insightful contributions to the discussions today. Ibrahim Kwabwe Mwamba has also been here with us. Hartwell Selassie Tamaklo is a Ghanaian, and we're grateful, Selassie, for also joining us. Priska Manyala has also been with us. Grateful for agreeing to speak at this event. And of course, a big thank you to the working group that led the discussions or the planning on this particular one. Adontin has had quite a very difficult one. It's not an easy thing, putting school work together and all of that. But in the interest of the student movement on the continent, he's done an incredible job. We're grateful to him and grateful to everybody. And thank you to the rest of you who have joined in our conversation. We're grateful that you do this. My name is Abdul Karim Ibrahim. I am a research coordinator and communications officer here at the All Africa Students Union. We're grateful. This is how much time we have on this today. Hopefully, the next time when we invite you, you're able to also join us and contribute towards making sure that students here in Africa and across the world get the best. Thank you very much. And on behalf of the All Africa Students Union, we say thank you wherever you are and have